Edidun had heard the name Feng Yan spoken countless times, back when he was at Seven Winds Mountains and had run into Feng Luo. That had been the first occasion he heard Feng Yan mentioned. Li Hao and the others revered him greatly. Later, during the Dayuan tournament, the name Feng Yan was brought up time and again as well. It was the name of a prodigy so dazzling that even geniuses like Qi Yongye, Li Dongyue, and the rest would pale beside him. After arriving at Huyang Academy, Ling Han learned that this person's prowess was enough to place him among the top 10 strongest true disciples, and he might even have the qualifications to challenge the Academy's only 3 core disciples. Because of Feng Luo, there was no way for him to avoid clashing with Feng Yan. And tonight, at long last, they met. Haha, no matter what hour Brother Feng chooses to arrive, I will certainly come out to receive you. The third Imperial Prince laughed loudly, his voice rolling through the night. Shoo! A figure suddenly shot into the side courtyard. It was a tall, slender young man, brows sharply defined, eyes bright as stars. His hair was a thick fall of jet-black locks, and it seemed as though a sacred radiance wrapped his entire body, emitting a faint pale glow that could enchant any who beheld it. Ling Han's eyes abruptly narrowed. 7th layer of gushing spring tear. Before the new year, hadn't this man only been at the 3rd layer of gushing spring tear? How could it be that in merely 2 months, he had broken through 4 whole layers? This was even more astonishing than Ling Han himself. This fellow must have obtained some colossal stroke of fate. Otherwise, who could possibly surpass Ling Han, who possessed the perfect combination of alchemical pills to support his cultivation, a heaven-grade spirit base and heaven-grade cultivation techniques, in terms of cultivation speed? Feng Yan. His name was renowned across the younger generation of Rain Country, and no one dared to underestimate him. This man had an exceedingly high chance of stepping into spiritual pedestal tier someday and becoming one of Rain Country's ultimate warriors. Brother Feng, the 3rd Imperial Prince, rose and lifted his clasped hands toward Feng Yan. Though his cultivation was higher than Ling Han's, he did not possess the divine sense Ling Han had retained from his previous life as an ultimate heaven-tier warrior. Moreover, he stood quite far from Feng Yan, and thus could not discern Feng Yan's cultivation level. Besides, who would observe another person's cultivation for no reason? Your Imperial Highness! Feng Yan likewise raised his clasped hands, his gaze sweeping over everyone present before he said, I have come so boldly tonight because, first, I wish to pay my respects to your Imperial Highness, and second, I heard that the person who framed my younger brother and nearly caused him to be expelled from the Academy is also present here tonight. When he spoke those last words, his gaze halted and fixed upon Ling Han. Clearly, he had recognized him. The 3rd Imperial Prince froze for a moment, and then a raging fire ignited in his heart. Feng Yan was plainly here to seek vengeance. Yet the problem now was that this was a banquet he was hosting, and Feng Yan had actually come to cause trouble. How much face was Feng Yan refusing to give him? Indeed, he held Feng Yan in very high regard, but in the end, Feng Yan was still merely a martial artist. Frankly speaking, Feng Yan's cultivation was below his own. What he valued was Feng Yan's future potential and the heights he could reach. In terms of background, the Feng clan only had gushing spring tier martial artists. In terms of personal ability, Feng Yan was only at the 3rd layer of gushing spring tier. What right did Feng Yan have to disregard him so completely? In the 3rd Imperial Prince's heart, Ling Han, who had 2 major alchemical bosses behind him, was obviously far more important than Feng Yan. Thus, he chose to support Ling Han fully without the slightest hesitation. Brother Feng, I was also present during that incident, and I can guarantee that it was your brother who intended to frame Ling Han, he said. Yet Ling Han furrowed his brows because he caught Feng Yan's words, almost caused him to be expelled from the Academy. That meant Feng Luo was still at the Academy? What was going on? He wanted to deal with an old pervert, yet ran into trouble. Now, he wanted to kick Feng Luo out of the Academy, and here came Feng Yan, using some unknown method to pull Feng Luo back in. Heng, the Academy has already investigated that it was solely Weihelei's responsibility. It was he who stole the badge I lent to Feng Luo. Weihelei previously had a conflict with Ling Han, and so he framed my brother, Feng Yan said darkly. How could he be so shameless? Everything had clearly been plotted by Feng Luo. Yet in his brother's mouth, Feng Luo had suddenly become the victim. Right and wrong were so easily overturned by Feng Yan. Yet Ling Han was not the slightest bit angered. History was always written by the victors. And in this world, true authority and valid argument were decided by the strength of one's fists. What he did not understand was how Feng Yan could be so fearless when he was only at the 7th layer of Gushing Spring Tier. One had to know that even if Feng Yan stepped into Spiritual Ocean Tier, he was still a subject of Rain Country and had not yet reached the level where he could break away from imperial authority. This would at least require Spiritual Pedestal Tier. And if one was at Flower Blossoming Tier, that was an existence that stood above all others. Feng Yan should definitely not be so idiotic. The 3rd Imperial Prince also never expected Feng Yan to actually dare oppose him like this. His thoughts whirled quickly. Could it be that Feng Yan had sought refuge under his eldest brother, or his 7th brother, and that was why he feared nothing? But no matter what, a mere subject dared to talk back to him publicly. This challenged his authority, something he would never tolerate. Feng Yan, mind your words. He withdrew his smile. His face turned wholly grave as a faint yet powerful aura emanated from him. When a son of God raged, blood would flow over 10,000 miles. Though the 3rd Imperial Prince was not yet Emperor, he could still borrow a limited portion of the nation's power, instantly placing him in an imposing position as if he were an emperor himself, causing everyone to feel only reverence and fear. Your Imperial Highness, hand this person over to me, and I will give you face and not kill him. Feng Yan showed no fear at all. He even began to lay down conditions to the 3rd Imperial Prince. Silence fell across the entire area. Had Feng Yan lost his mind? That was the 3rd Imperial Prince, the most powerful person in Huyang Academy. His personal ability alone was more than enough to dominate Feng Yan, not to mention that he was an Imperial Prince who held monstrous power in his grasp. Even if the 3rd Imperial Prince was skilled at concealing his emotions, hearing such words still made his face twitch slightly, betraying the fierce rage within. He drew a deep breath, suppressed those emotions, and then said calmly, "You are going a bit too far. Is your Imperial Highness unwilling to hand this person over to me?" Feng Yan smiled with a hint of mockery. "Could it be you dare to use force right in front of me?" The 3rd Imperial Prince asked coldly. He was now truly furious. Everyone has the responsibility to arrest a criminal. Is your Imperial Highness intending to shield such a criminal? Feng Yan strode forward, showing absolutely no fear of the 3rd Imperial Prince. "How dare you!" Ziyan sprang out, her hands flashing. In each palm appeared a blue dagger, and she charged straight at Feng Yan. Shua, shua, shua! Blue light danced unrestrained, forming a dagger dance that filled the air, as if a screen of light had unfurled before their eyes. "Petty tricks!" Feng Yan snorted, then drove out a fist. This punch was terrifyingly powerful, as if a mountain were pressing down. The instant he punched, Ziyan's face turned deathly pale, her crimson hair whipping in every direction like a hurricane had swept through. Pang! His punch had not even struck her, yet Ziyan was already hurled away by a mighty force. As she flew through the air, an arrow of blood trailed behind her. This... Everyone was utterly stunned. Feng Yan actually dared to injure someone. Had he gone mad, or did he have some astonishing trump card hidden up his sleeve? Trash! The 3rd Imperial Prince snorted in a low voice. He was already furious, and now one of his people was defeated with a single punch, making him lose control of his emotions, unable to help but spit out that word. Ziyan looked as if she had been dealt a cruel blow. Her body shuddered faintly, and she spat out another mouthful of blood. Yet Feng Yan only stared at Ling Han and exclaimed darkly, "You truly are very bold." Translator, Dark Angel. Editor, Kurisu. "I have ever walked with boldness," Ling Han said, his tone calm as still water. "You are not afraid that I will slay you?" Feng Yan asked, as if heaven and earth contained only the two of them. He did not even care for the 3rd Imperial Prince's presence. The 3rd Imperial Prince's entire body trembled without cease. He could barely restrain himself any longer. "Do you dare?" Ling Han smiled. Feng Yan actually weighed the question in earnest for a brief moment, then replied, "For now, I do not." "For now?" Then that meant that in the future, He would dare? Hiss. Could it be that this fellow did not know that behind Ling Han stood two great alchemical lords, and that he was a person to whom even the Rain Emperor had to grant a measure of face? If you do not dare, then scram. What are you still loitering here for, planning to flaunt that pretty face of yours? Ling Han scolded. Ha! The third imperial prince laughed out loud, feeling exceedingly gratified. Yet Feng Yan was not angered in the slightest, and said, "You have beaten that worthless brother of mine a few times, and tonight I have come to repay the favor, but it will be enough if I thrash you once. In the future, I will thoroughly discredit you, and you will be spurned by all before I finally kill you." His tone was utterly tranquil, as if he had already clasped some astonishing power and authority in his hand, enough to decide life and death for anyone in this imperial city. "Feng Yan, are you finished?" The third imperial prince rose and strode toward Feng Yan, flames of fury burning in his eyes. "You are indeed bold. To repeatedly proclaim your intent to murder within this imperial city, I shall apprehend you and deliver you to the prison, there to reflect upon yourself." "Oh, is your Imperial Highness going to personally bestow guidance upon me?" Feng Yan smiled serenely and said, "I have long admired the Son of Heaven fist technique that your Imperial Highness employs, and I would truly enjoy tasting it tonight." This man must have lost his mind, everyone else thought, yet they could not help but admire Feng Yan's gall. How many in the Imperial City would dare oppose the third Imperial Prince so openly? Even the young elites and peerless geniuses of the 8 great clans would not possess such ability, nor the courage to do such a thing. "You will soon have your wish." The third Imperial Prince's fists trembled, and in an instant, flashes of chi coursed across his entire body. That was the power of the nation. All descendants of the Imperial line, even if they were from a branch line like Qi Yongye, were able to wield this ability. The difference between the power of the nation and the power of the city lay only in the strength of the ability. They were essentially the same. To use the power of the nation to support oneself, and thereby gain the ability to suppress one's opponent. This alone was enough to raise one's battle prowess by 2 or even 3 battle stars. The third Imperial Prince was originally at the 7th layer of Gushing Spring tier. Once he began to manipulate the power of the nation, his battle prowess would at least be worth 10 stars. And this was not yet taking into account the additional power upgrade from his martial arts technique and fist chi. With all of these counted together, there would definitely be no difficulty for the third Imperial Prince to reach 11 stars. Facing a third Imperial Prince who was exerting himself to the fullest, Feng Yan did not dare to be careless, and at last withdrew his laid-back expression, turning solemn. The two of them were about to move to attack, and the air instantly grew incomparably taut. "Hey, is it appropriate to begin fighting within my cherishing flower pavilion?" A dainty voice rang out, and a shapely figure shot over. It was a beautiful woman with an exquisitely sensuous figure, and her face was temptingly gorgeous and coy. Her mature body was practically enough to make the eyes of all onlookers turn red. How seductive! How fearsome! It was enough to incite others to commit crime. Lady Yan. The third Imperial Prince cupped his hands toward her and smiled. This was the owner of the Cherishing Flower Pavilion. To be able to open such a money-squandering establishment within the Imperial City, how could the proprietor be any common, ordinary person? Even Feng Yan drew back his battle intent, cupped his hands, and said, "Greetings, Lady Yan." Lady Yan beamed and said, "I cannot bear to receive such great courtesy from esteemed guests such as you two. However, the Cherishing Flower Pavilion has its own rules, and fighting is forbidden here. If the two of you wish to fight, then please proceed outside for your battle." "Ha! Since Lady Yan has already spoken thus, how could I be rude?" Feng Yan again cupped his hands, then turned to Ling Han and said, "I will let you off this once, but there will be no second time." He turned around and left, not giving the third Imperial Prince any face at all. Ling Han and the third Imperial Prince were both clear. This was all because of Feng Luo. Because of him, Feng Yan had begun to nurse resentment toward the two of them. More importantly, what kind of trump card had this fellow obtained, that he would even dare oppose the third Imperial Prince in public? After the disturbance raised by Feng Yan, All the guests had lost the heart to continue drinking and making merry, so the third imperial prince simply ended the banquet, and everyone returned to their respective homes. "Mr. Ling, could you meet with me for a moment?" Ling Han had only just stepped out of the courtyard when he heard Lady Yan's voice. It was dainty and sweet, as if wrought from honey, a truly beautiful voice. Ling Han smiled faintly and said, "Of course." He told Li Hao and Zhu Shuiyi to go on first, while he walked toward Lady Yan. "Mr. Ling, please." Lady Yan invited Ling Han into an elegant little courtyard where flowers bloomed on all sides, forming an exquisitely beautiful scene. "May I know your reason for meeting with me, Lady Yan?" Ling Han sat down, and an extremely beautiful young girl served fragrant tea. This young girl's tea was of far higher quality than that of the two women before, and every movement and smile of hers seemed to carry some kind of spell, making the hearts of those who saw her throb and beat faster. She was also a very bold girl. She took her place behind Lady Yan and cast a curious gaze at Ling Han. That was because there were very few people in the imperial city who could enter this side courtyard, and any one of them could make the entire imperial city tremble with a few stomps of their feet. A young man who looked even younger than herself. What basis did he have to come here? Moreover, his expression was completely calm. There was no trace of nervousness or delighted surprise, which only left her even more puzzled. "Mr. Ling has obtained the favor of two ultimate Grandmaster alchemists, which is a very curious thing to me," Lady Yan said with a beautiful smile. "Perhaps I will have something that may require Mr. Ling's help in the future, and so I would like to establish good relations with Mr. Ling." Well, she was direct. "This is a small gift from me, and it would please me if Mr. Ling would agree to accept it." Lady Yan nodded to the young girl, and the latter produced a small wooden box, which she then set upon the table. Ling Han did not refuse, and simply opened the box on the spot. Within lay a red-colored brocade pad, and atop the brocade pad rested a handguard. From the look of it, it should be quite old. An unadorned primitive aura emanated from it. He stroked the handguard a few times, then slightly closed his eyes. After a moment, he finally said, "Lady Yan is indeed exceedingly generous. Such a gift, I do not feel worthy of it." "Oh?" Lady Yan's curiosity was stirred, and she asked, "Does Mr. Ling know the use of this handguard?" "If I have not guessed wrongly, it can help one increase one's battle prowess, and it should be able to raise it by at least a whole battle star," Ling Han said. An increase of an entire battle star was a truly terrifying thing. For most people, they could only display battle prowess that corresponded to their cultivation level. Yet once the battle prowess they could display exceeded their cultivation level, that meant they had gained the ability to challenge an opponent stronger than themselves, regardless of cultivation difference. That was why Ling Han said, Lady Yan was very generous. This was their first meeting, and yet she had given him such a precious gift. Even if Lady Yan was naturally generous, this was still far too shocking. "Mr. Ling is indeed knowledgeable. That is right. The name of this tool is Purple Star Handguard. Once activated, it will be able to increase the user's battle prowess by another star, but exactly to what extent this power upgrade will be depends on the level of affinity the user has with this handguard," Lady Yan explained. Ling Han set the lid back upon the box and asked, "Milady, is there something you want my help with?" "There is indeed," Lady Yan smiled faintly.